joining us for this month's episode of This Is My Story. In this podcast, we will sit down and talk to someone who has a powerful story of transformation because of what Jesus did in their life.
My name's Angie Jewson, and this is my story.
Hey, we're so excited for this podcast of This Is My Story, and we're excited to have Angie Jewson with us today. And me and Angie go way back, and
Yes, we do.
we'll share that in a little bit. But man, we're excited to have you.
Very
and
excited.
Thank
as
you.
we were praying about who to have, man, God just laid you on our heart, and we knew that that's who was supposed to do this. And man, you have so many stories and so many just powerful moments in your life that you've surrendered to the Lord and what He's brought you out from. And I know there's so many people listening and watching too who are like, "There's no way, that she came from this or did that." But man,
Right.
you're a living proof of what God can do in someone's life.
Absolutely.
And we're just so excited that you're here with us, and man, we love you and believe in you.
Well, thank you.
For sure.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I was talking to Dylan earlier today, and I was saying how I'm excited because I know bits and pieces of your story and your story, but I've never heard, like going way back to where before you even knew him and stuff. So I'm excited to hear all about that. So
Yeah.
Many stories where she likes to claim that she struck me out when I was
I did, and I was in a skirt.
at home, man, out in the front. It was wiffle ball though. It
Wiffle.
wasn't normal
right.
ball, but man,
Oh yeah.
But I got you in the backyard. I remember it.
awesome.
Very well. Yeah, it was good.
I love it, man.
Yeah.
That's awesome. What's your guys' first memories of each other? I mean,
So my first memory of Dylan Jagger Robinson is at the drive-thru in the credit union in 1996
okay.
on Elm Street. His parents banked at the credit union, and I was a drive-thru teller.
I got
So,
those little bank
awesome.
suckers.
little,
The
yeah,
dum-dums,
the
man.
dum-dums.
Extra ones every once in a while.
Absolutely.
That's
I always
awesome.
stocked them up. Yeah.
So you
yeah.
had been 3 in
Yeah.
1996.
Yeah.
Okay. That's
Yeah.
crazy.
So go way back.
Yeah, way back,
when.
way back.
What's your first memory of her?
Man, I was pretty young, but I remember getting suckers. But I remember seeing the person from afar in the bank. But man, just once my dad and her just began to, date, just all of a sudden.
Do you remember me coming over and you guys were on the trampoline and I'm like, I can do this. You guys want to see and I did a backhand spring for you.
I remember that house. It was on the north side of Springfield, or is the duplex right there.
Yeah, you're in the duplex.
Yeah, and I just remember you guys, just beginning to hang out, and I realized I'm like, okay, they're gonna date,
Yeah.
and my dad and mom separated, and then you were there, and just super nice, and just that was the adjustment for me of okay, this is gonna be the new normal,
Yeah.
and
Right.
man, it was especially early on, everything, new beginnings, everything's fine, it's gonna be great,
Everything
and so,
was, yep.
for
great.
a little bit.
Rainbows.
Yeah, so, exactly. But no, the first
Yeah.
impression and all that was good, but just I was a kid, just figuring it out, and
Yeah.
and they were figuring it out, and it was just I knew she had a son named Damon, and I grew up an only child. And so, having somebody right there around me when
Right.
my dad and her started dating, that was really cool just to have
Yeah.
another, sibling around me.
How
for
old was
sure.
Damon when?
Damon was a year and a half old.
Oh, really? So he's
Yeah,
young.
he was
Okay.
young.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
So at the beginning, because when you'll tell your story, you'll say at the beginning when you and Sean started dating, things were pretty good. So do you guys have good memories together, or is it all just?
It's
There are a lot of it.
complicated.
I love it.
It's
Yeah.
complicated.
I think early on it was so. You're somewhat naive. When I say you, all of us in a new situation. Obviously our foundation wasn't based on God, so there wasn't much good.
Exactly. And I think that Sean and I both being married,
Right.
it was tough.
Right.
It was tough because
Yeah.
I think that all of our heartstring were being pulled.
Yeah.
you
Right.
know. I know mine were.
Right.
Trying to, not that I was I'm committing a sin or
Right.
Right.
or I'm living in sin.
Yeah.
It just at some point didn't feel
Right.
the flow.
Right.
It was hard to find an even flow.
Yeah.
And I say that
Right.
in the best.
Oh, for
of
sure.
my-
Yeah,
yeah,
for sure.
Yeah.
So,
And I think once the relationship was established, when you're okay, you guys are together now and stuff like that, then you begin to adapt. Okay, this is the new norm. And yeah, early on, before things began to really unravel, there were fun times. Going to eat and
Yeah.
having fun and having Damon right there. A
Yeah.
lot of fun memories early on, like you said, the trampoline, just messing around,
Right.
But,
Right.
but then as things continue to unravel and things like that. Yeah, that's where the hardships came in. But
Right.
it was it was fun. There were like some good memories that we can look back on and laugh. But
how crazy is it that you guys are here today now?
It's bizarre.
if people
Telling
if
your
people
story.
only knew.
If somebody told me 20 years ago,
man.
25 years ago, that, hey, that kid's going to be interviewing you, the one with the dum-dums, I'd be like,
Yeah, right.
What do you
kidding?
mean?
No,
Right?
man.
Because but I am starting to notice that the more of the divine interventions that happen in your life when you have a faith
Right.
that's bigger than what we can see.
It's real.
And it is real.
Right.
And and also going through the sobriety thing is something that for me to see Dylan going to Selena's house like for his graduation and seeing these people that have brought Dylan in and have this love that and I'm like, how do you have that?
Yeah.
What is that?
Yeah.
Right.
And so, and then we can go more into that with, Pastor Selena, but that was my, I don't want to say an idol,
Right.
but
It's a role model to you.
The role model.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah. A role model. So,
Right.
Yeah, and that's the
For
beauty, now of just serving God together. Like she said, if you would have told me back then, I mean,
I would have been like,
Right.
whatever.
Right.
That's
I mean, that's the greatest miracle, though.
It is.
Granted, the foundation of you and my dad, and me and my mom and everything like that, terrible foundation, which we were living in sin. Like all of it, it wasn't about the Lord. But I think here we are today. 10 or gosh, way more than 10 years. Like so many years later, serving God together.
Yeah.
So many people around us that are serving God together. Only Jesus, man, can do that.
Only.
It's crazy.
And it's been remarkable.
Yeah.
It really
That's
has.
awesome.
Yeah.
But I mean, like for you, like a lot of people know, so Jagger, my little brother, your boy, and here we are today, like, gosh, he's like a grown up. So he thinks,
He's
right?
such a, yes.
But like, you were a kid at one point in time, and most people just know this side of your story. They know Angie, who you are today, and all that. But what was it like growing up for you as a kid?
As a kid, there was a lot of sadness and dysfunction.
Yeah.
So I was born in Rochester, Minnesota.
Okay.
My parents were married. I have a older half brother. His name is Tony, and my dad adopted him. We were pretty close growing up.
Yeah.
We moved a lot though. So I moved from Rochester to Hollister, Missouri, when I was real young, and went to school in Hollister for a couple of years.
You guys just moved for work or just to move out here?
Well, my dad sold Kirby's, and he started a Kirby business down there.
Okay.
My mom didn't like Missouri.
Right.
And so in the middle of my second grade year, we moved back to Rochester, Minnesota, where all my family is.
Mm-hmm.
And then the middle of my sixth grade year, I moved back to Nixa, Missouri. Okay, so mind you, and when I went through school, I probably went to 8 different schools within the first 6 years of school.
Yeah.
Or, okay.
Did that mess with you? Like your mindset?
Yeah,
and all
learning.
that?
Yeah, learning.
Yeah.
But I think that's where I got the finesse to talk to people.
Yeah.
Right.
In a sense, I was always the new kid.
You had to
Yeah.
adapt.
Always. So in Rochester, if you moved 2 blocks over, it's very possible you're going to a different school, and that's what happened a lot.
Okay.
Alcoholism played a big role in my family, and my mom was addicted to cocaine. So it really set a tone for what a kid thinks is normal.
Right.
So did you know she was on cocaine at the time?
After I don't know, honestly, I was taken away from my mom, but my dad came up and got custody of me and moved me to Nixa, Missouri,
Okay.
where I, loved.
Yeah.
I went to Nixa and I just fit in.
Right.
Okay. Of course, I was away from my mom, but my mom went into rehab in 1989. I moved to Nixa in 1988. And I use this as this timeline. So in 1987, a huge deal happened where my house burned down and my mom's fiance died in it.
Oh, wow.
And my mom never really recovered from that.
Yeah.
Wow.
So being an adult now and having kids and seeing that the effect of trauma
Yeah.
on your life, how it affected us and what it took on her, you know.
Right.
How old were you think when all that
I
went down?
was 11.
Wow.
It's like, going back and forth between Minnesota and Nixa. And then two difference that, there. You don't even have a Minnesota accent.
No.
But your mom
Yeah.
does.
Yeah.
I know your mom does.
Yeah, my mom does for sure.
Yeah.
That's been hard, because you have to think about, I have my mom, but I've seen her maybe 20 times in 20 years.
Yeah.
Crazy.
So our relationship was established on smoking weed and drinking at a very young age for me.
Yeah.
Because there was so much sadness when I would go visit.
Right. So like, do you know how old you were when you knew like, okay, mom isn't well? Like how old do you think you were?
In 1989, when my mom went to rehab, I was taken up there to the rehab for a whole week with her and sat in classes.
Wow.
So you can imagine.
You were like how old then?
12.
Wow. You were there a whole week.
I still have a calendar with the Serenity Prayer on the other side from 1989. Yeah. I was there a whole week. Yeah. And my brother was my mom was like on the 4th floor. My brother was on like the 2nd floor because my brother was addicted to drugs at that age too. He was 15.
Wow.
And so it was early. It was young.
Early.
Yeah.
Yeah. So so I watched everybody struggle. So I moved in with my dad. He was 40 years old whenever he took custody of me. And my dad was also going through sobriety.
Oh, wow.
So he was going to AA meetings and stuff. I would have been attending AA meetings probably since I was like in 3rd grade.
Wow.
Wow.
So your mom was on drugs and your dad was, like an alcoholic essentially. And so, I mean, like, granted, everybody has a different story and everybody, handles things differently. But like for you, like, you had to adapt. But like, do you remember being able to just kind of like, really think about this stuff that's going on around you? Or did you just have to cover it up and just roll with it?
I just rolled with it.
Yeah.
It was really hard. And I say really hard. I don't know when our house burned down and we didn't have a place to live anymore and my mom's fiance died in it, I was an adult the next day.
Right.
Yeah.
I remember literally my whole demeanor and everything about me changed.
Wow.
My mom was,
Yeah.
devastated.
Yeah.
We all were. I mean, he was a good person to us.
Yeah.
And we lived in his house. And we were without a place to live.
Right.
And my brother was really affected by it. So, because he's the one that knocked out the window for all of us, to get out.
Right.
So,
Wow.
yeah. And so life as I know it at that moment, it was 2 days after Christmas in 1987, was different.
Yeah.
It changed. So I moved to Nixa, Missouri, April of 88. My mom just really wasn't available,
Yeah.
And and I don't hold any hard feelings because now as an adult, being a mother, going through traumatic things, I see the effect of what it does in your ability
Right.
to really be available. And it's not an excuse, I don't think, but she really turned to alcoholism too. And then, cocaine.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, some of your earliest memories were drugs, and all that, and that became normal for you. Like, how old were you when you started using that? I know you alluded to it, but like, how old were you? And then what was that process like? It was just normal? Like, Angie's just using it and mom and dad knew, or what was that like?
Gosh, it's 14 years old is when I first started, smoking pot and drinking. Did my dad know? I don't want to think that he really knew the degree of it.
Right.
I thought I was pretty sly.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
So, but I remember one day him saying, experimenting time's over. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Who's experimenting what?
Right.
But so I don't think he really knew that I used to probably get high with my mom when I would go visit her. Otherwise, he probably would not have taken me up there. And
Right.
Is that how you were introduced to it? Through you and your mom?
Directly, no.
Yeah.
I started smoking with friends,
Right. And then it just went with
but just to go back a little bit, my mom was a good mom in the beginning, and I'm not saying not even today. She's still a good person.
Right.
Yeah.
Love her.
Right.
But I was in ballet, tap, gymnastics,
Right.
all that, But as your family goes through these addictions and this stuff in your lives, it's nothing but a wrecking ball.
Right.
Most people will be like, well, we had a car, we had this, we had that.
Right.
Eventually you lose it.
Right.
you know, and I see people that are functioning and that they can go out and have a drink. Our family really wasn't like that, you know. So, so at 14 to kind of get into it, but, you know, at 16 to be introduced to what I want to call what I considered my God was methamphetamines.
I mean, how'd that come about?
Oh, wow. Yeah. Isn't that crazy?
Right.
I mean, so if you can imagine,
People
I had my...
see you now, right?
And they're like,
meth.
And you don't look like you've ever.
your skin don't look like
Yeah.
that. That's the one thing, you know, and
Arbonne really, no, right? But like, seriously, though, like, and you got to realize, like, for people, you know, in their mindset who are not used to drugs and all that, they think, oh, meth are the people, you know, who
on
look
the
like this.
shot.
Right.
Here's, you know, Angie, who the gymnast, athletic, you know, pretty girl and all that. People like that, they don't
Surely
do meth
not,
and all that.
yeah.
Like, seriously though, like, and I know it was a different time, but like, how would somebody like you know, get involved with that?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know if it's weird how you have that law of attraction, but I don't want to think that, well, it just seemed like I always got around the people that always had the party. Okay. And I, you know, not really always looking for it, you know, but so I was helping somebody move and I had to get to a basketball game and I had a cheerleading uniform on. If you can imagine somebody 10 years older than me, a lady's like, here, this will help you. Right. And I ate it and snorted some. And I'm going to tell you this right now that I can't, I was hooked emotionally. I was emotionally rescued at that point from having any feeling of ever being sad.
Yeah.
And that was 16.
16
Wow.
years
I
old.
mean, they say, you know, meth is just like that drug that just, you know,
Yeah.
well, I mean, what's that like? You know, I mean, do you recall that? Just like you said, you were hooked and you just had no emotions. I mean, as a 16-year-old,
I was so sad all the time.
yeah,
You know, and I don't mean like, oh, I boo-hooed all the time.
Right.
Because no, none of my friends are ever going to tell you Angie was sad.
Right.
But I was,
Yeah.
you know.
like, did you put off this front that you were fine? But
Oh, always.
internally-
I was try to be the funny girl,
Right.
or,
Right.
you know, and I was friends with everybody, had a lot of good friends.
Do you think that came from, you know, you just kind of covering up those wounds of the past of your childhood? Yeah. And then you dealt with that, right?
Yeah.
And isn't it funny, not funny, but like funny, essentially, where we know that this isn't going to be the cure.
Right.
We've seen the damage it's done in our mom and our dad,
Right.
but yet we go ahead and do it.
Right.
You
And,
know?
you know, I thought if I wasn't snorting cocaine, then I would be okay.
Wow. Yeah, because that's what your mom
Because
did.
my mom was
Right.
addicted. And
Yeah.
if I wasn't drinking alcohol, I would be okay.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
And it is crazy because even today, for me to struggle with the fact that, you know, probably not a real good idea that I drink.
Right.
And for me to start dating somebody last year for just a brief amount of time that drank, and I started being like, it's okay.
Right.
Right.
It's not.
Right.
Yeah.
You know,
Just, you know,
it's just not. It's
triggered.
not where I'm trying to go.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
And so here's where you can be feeling so good for so long, and you're like, I'm okay.
Yeah.
Like when you were 16 and you started experimenting, did you ever know like, okay, I'll never get to this point, or were you just kind of like, hey, let's party, let's have fun?
Yeah. So you know, I thought when I was 20 I would quit,
Right.
and I really was a goal setter.
Right.
I really, you know,
So you just said at 20 years old, I'm done.
oh yeah, done.
Huh.
Done. But you know what? Then, hey, I was living with somebody that sold it.
Right.
You know, we had a nice house, you know, a pool,
Yeah.
had a car, had a great job.
Right.
A great job. I couldn't ask for a better job
Man.
at that age. Of course, we don't know what we got
Right.
until it's gone. But yeah, and I didn't think I was anybody. You know, and now today I can sit there and say everybody's somebody, but I didn't really think I was anybody,
Right.
and I didn't think that I had any real purpose.
Yeah,
Right.
Value.
Yeah.
That, like when you went to school and you were high or, you know, coming off it, like, did anyone around you know? Like, did your dad or anybody?
No, not
Just
really.
kinda,
You know, of course, I had my couple girlfriends that, and I don't even, you know, what I remember the most is I was not real secretive about it, but secretive because I had my girlfriends that are the doctors and the lawyers today, you know, that were my cheerleading friends.
Right.
Never in a million years would I ever make that out that it was like something fun or good because that wasn't what I wanted to display with them, you
Right.
know. So I think I did try to hide it more so, but towards the end, like my senior year even, I lost groove for cheerleading.
Right.
and I just went into working all the time and stuff. So
Well, that's one that I'm glad you bring that up because, some of my conversation with you now, you talked about being a functioning drug addict, right?
Yeah.
And we talked about the bank earlier,
Yeah.
and, banker and,
Yeah.
somebody in that position would never, be a meth addict, never look that good and beyond that. Like you
Right.
said, at 20 years old, you're going to stop. But then obviously that didn't happen. So, I mean, how did you become this functional drug addict? I mean, that's unheard of, like
Yeah.
in some people's mind.
Right. So, I think back about it, and it's just one of those things that I don't know if it just became where I had to have it for emotionally. And especially towards the end of my run with meth, it got to where I couldn't even stand up without being dizzy without it. But even at the bank, I mean, you're talking, I accelerated. I started here. I was the youngest girl at the bank, and I became a teller supervisor, data processor.
Right.
I mean, there wasn't a thing I didn't know about the bank,
Right.
And so I hid in it. Well, the year 2000 is when I went to my first rehab, and I had to tell them, like, I've got a substance abuse problem. And
How old were you
everybody's,
then?
let's see, I was 24.
Wow.
Okay.
Wow. What made you get to that point where it's like, man, I need help?
I started smoking it, and I couldn't set it down.
Really?
Yeah.
So
It got to where I was like maybe running a little late for work at that
Right.
point.
Yeah.
Nothing that would show up in my ability to do my job
Right.
as much as just
no
my,
one at work knew, right? They didn't.
They would have never
yeah.
guessed it.
never.
Wow.
Man.
Never.
And so, were you single during this time? Did you, just guy, boyfriend, like a serious one, or what was that like?
At that point, yeah, I did have a good boyfriend
Yeah.
at that. Yeah. And he didn't even know
Oh, wow.
that I did it as much as I did it. Now,
Right.
mind you, he knew I had a history of it,
Yeah.
Right.
but I'd never done it with him. So he helped me get I went to Hazelden at Center City, Minnesota, and that was for 30 days. Really great rehab. But you know what? I got out, and I think today is when I realized it's a spiritual battle at that point.
Right.
Okay. So I can remember them giving me the tools. I mean, we had all the famous people that went there: Elvis, Liza Minnelli. You know what I
Right.
mean?
Yeah.
But it is what it is. There's really not an amount of money or any dollar that you can put on the fact that if you don't have faith and see your value as a person, it's really
Right.
hard to think that that's going to be a curse on you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like when you were in rehab, and then, how long were you there for, first of all?
Okay, so let's see. I was there for, it's 28 days.
Wow.
Okay.
And so then once you left there, you came back to Missouri, and you were sober, here we go?
Oh,
or-
yeah, I'm
Yeah.
good. I've gained a little bit of weight. I was pretty thin, But you know what I did? I went ahead and just broke up with that boyfriend and got my own apartment so Angie could do what she wanted to do.
Wow.
Because
Did
that's
you
what
know
we did.
you were gonna, start going back to meth immediately, or was it something like
I
you
think
got
I
back?
always had reservation for it.
Really?
Yeah.
It was my best friend.
Yeah.
It
Wow.
was.
Yeah.
And I don't want to glorify that substance by any means.
Right.
No.
But it's hard to even explain how high a regard I
Yeah.
had for
Right.
that. I knew it'd never leave me nor forsake me.
Right.
I would have to leave it.
Right.
Wow. Yeah.
Right. And such a
And I had
spiritual
control.
thing.
Oh, I had control of it.
Yeah.
Right. And I appreciate you sharing because sometimes we want to say the most polished version, the
Right.
beautiful version. And we're going to talk about the transformation of what Jesus has done in your life. But
Yeah.
man,
Yeah.
you didn't just get there overnight, though.
Right.
You know?
No.
Now, granted, He's been there the entire time. It's just that we have free will. Do we want to obey God, or
Yeah.
we want to trust Him, or truly know Him as our Lord and Savior? But at that point in time, you didn't.
I didn't.
And I believe that if we continue to, rebel against God, sometimes we don't even know we're rebelling.
Right.
You
Right.
know? But then if we want to continue to go down that path, the sin gets darker and darker. And
It
you get
does.
deeper and deeper, right? And so there you are, 24 years old, right?
Yeah.
Then when did that switch happen where, just it went from, okay, I'm kind of the young girl, nobody would ever suspect me using, to all of a sudden, man, this has me. You
Yeah.
know? How
So-
old do you think you were, and what was that like?
Probably at 26, when Damon was born.
Really?
That was tough because I still, even when I was pregnant, had reservation to get high after I had him.
Right.
And, bless his heart in that sense. And even with his dad, we used together. Right. Chad today, Damon's dad, one of my best friends. Right. I mean, I can't even begin to explain the relationship I have with him.
Yeah.
Been my friend since 1994. But he's like 15 years clean from it. So,
but at that point in time, I mean, you're just going, right? And you just had a baby.
Yeah.
Just had a baby. And then we had a kind of a rocky relationship, obviously. And I moved out with Damon, and I moved in with my dad. And so I was at my dad's for about 9 months, and I even went through an outpatient rehab. I was arrested for assault on Chad. Just a manifestation of things. Never been arrested at this point ever in my life, let alone for anything other. I mean, nothing.
Yeah.
I've been pulled over for speeding. That's it.
Right.
So at 27, to have a new baby, arrested for assault, and things were getting really real. But instead of looking at me, I looked at everybody else.
Right.
And I'll tell you, and I was real good at it. Right. It was my dad's fault.
Right.
Yeah, he called the police.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
We thought we were going to get my stuff. No, Angie got arrested.
Right.
I mean, it's not that I'm not glorifying it, and I don't ever want anybody to think that
Right.
But it is my reality. It was my reality.
Well, I appreciate you sharing it, and I know this is hard looking back, but man, your mom was a drug addict. Your dad was an alcoholic, and then you said 20 years old, I'm done. I'm never using again. Then you have a kid, and you're still using, right?
Yeah.
And I know these are hard questions, but I think it's so powerful because they're teaching moments where we think, well, if this will just happen, then I'll get sober, right?
Oh, yeah.
But then that wasn't the reality for you.
Yeah.
Now you're the mom. You're past being 20 years old. You're pointing at your mom and your dad or whoever, and here you are, and you're just stuck and addicted. I mean, and not to reopen wounds, but I think it's powerful because there's people listening or watching who are there right now.
Yeah.
And that's what I got to wrap my mind around, because this can and it will help somebody.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Because you can't stop starting, and why do you start when you stop, or and it's just it's a cycle.
Right.
The cycle of
Right.
addiction.
Right.
And the obsession of the mind.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's powerful.
It is. And and so this is kind of where our stories, intertwine, because,
Yes.
I've shared my story time and time again, and, but people have never been able to hear another family member, share their side of the story, which is so powerful. And it was so cool. People outside of the intermediate family, you're the only one that is on fire for the Lord. Now I have my grandparents that are on fire, and other family members, but within just a close knit,
Yeah.
you're the only one
Yeah.
that's that loves the Lord, and which is so crazy. It's so
Right.
cool that we're able to do this, but it wasn't like that,
Right.
right? Man, we have history and all that, but kind of share how you and my dad you connected, because you guys. I was the kid in the back seat, the little baby, one of the suckers, and then you guys got intertwined. My dad was boxing, and what was that like? How'd you guys? I don't even know if I know this story.
Right,
yet.
how we came together.
Right.
Okay, so your mom was dating somebody that banked at the credit union that I went to the lake with. Okay. So how your dad,
Right.
PI, he finds out everything about everything, right?
Right.
So he found out that I went to the lake with this guy, and so he got my phone number and was able to contact me, and I was living at my dad's. And he's like, hey, this is Sean. I'm like, oh, wow, this is weird, because I wasn't working at the bank anymore. I was working at another bank, so I wasn't at Telecom. And so we met up, and just to kind of, he's like, I was just going to ask you about this guy. And, and I'm like, oh, that was weird. And, and it's, a short thing.
And
but
he just knew you from you working at the bank? Is that the
so
only
I was like your dad's, and your mom's personal banker. I mean, they really had, and when I say personal banker, that really didn't exist at the credit union.
Right.
But for Sean, called me every day.
Right.
And I would help him with their account.
Right.
Yeah.
That's cool.
For years. And so it was more of a friend thing than anything, And so we just went out, and, I was, of course, living with my dad and separated from my husband at the time. And, I don't know at what point that I was like, hey, Sean, move in. Because I don't think that ever came up. He just didn't leave, in a sense.
Right.
Now, I don't need to say that.
Right.
We just worked together.
Yeah.
And because I moved out of my dad's, and I got that duplex. I don't know if you remember, in Nixa, it was a
I do.
fourplex. Okay. So, and we just went from there.
Yeah.
And well, we went on, he was boxing still. So we went on some boxing adventures.
Right.
That was bizarre.
Right.
I mean, if I could just,
Because that was towards the end of his career boxing.
it was,
right?
it was 2004.
Yeah.
So, our relationship was really good and solid. So your dad helped me through a lot of stuff, going through my divorce and some things that had come up. That, you know, I don't really know if I should talk about right now, but things that came up that emotionally I didn't really know how to handle them. So he was one of probably the most solid people in my life at that point.
Yeah.
So
Like at that point in time, did you know, everything my dad was involved in, as far as drugs and all that, or was it, were you caught off guard with, that information, or?
I was caught off guard because just like anybody would look at me and be like,
right.
Dude, he was the boxer,
Yeah.
like, right?
Right.
Wow, so you had
like,
no idea.
Not so much,
Wow. That is
Okay.
crazy to me.
I really didn't.
Yeah.
So we would talk, in the drive-through at the
Right.
bank, I'd be like, oh yeah, you're going to fight tonight,
Right.
Rocket?
Right.
We would just crack up.
Right. Just talking.
Yeah.
Like, and so, I mean, because there were, in my book, I described some, fun moments of boxing. I mean, that was a huge part of my childhood,
Yeah.
and I'm teaching, Jagger, the
Yeah,
box now.
I think
so-
that's great.
Yeah.
He loves it.
Oh man, he
Jagger
thinks it's
is
tough.
on fire for it.
He's awesome though. But like,
cool.
but there were some good times,
There were.
and oftentimes, we hit on the hardships and things like that.
Yeah.
But like, just briefly, like what, because Maddie, she hears me tell, I'm like, babe, I wish you could like have been there. Like, anytime around here, my dad was
big-
always like the
right.
main guy.
Big wig.
And so,
Oh, yeah.
hold me up after the end
Oh,
of the fights.
yes.
And I
Yes.
was so proud. But like, in a positive note, before we kind of talk about other stuff, like what was that like, because
Yeah.
you've seen the
So-
boxer and now you're up close to him and you're going to, box with him. Like, what was that like?
Wow. So, here's one of my real good memories is when he won the last tough man that he ever fought in here in Springfield.
Yeah.
And I remember you getting on in the ring with him. Of course, I was just sideline, worked at the bank, got a ticket,
Right.
cheering on Sean, right?
Right.
And he was boxing one of my friends that we actually partied with, which who
Okay.
had won other tough man, Rob Butcher. He passed away, but yeah. So to see that, and then you go be with him when I started going with him to these boxing adventures. I'll tell you. I mean, there was nothing more powerful than to go to a boxing match, but just give me a little bit of liquor, and I had those security chasing me. And, you just get all wound up.
It's a crazy environment.
Yes.
It's a crazy environment.
But Sean was such a powerful force
Right.
Right.
of a person.
Right.
I mean, I'd never been around somebody that had that much energy
Yeah.
and driven.
Right.
Right.
And that's the thing.
So
like,
that's
and I'm sure with Maddie, like, people, just say, talk about stories of your dad or my dad and things like that. And now being, pastor and things like that, kind of, there's some confidence, there's some, beliefs and things like that I have, which now are, set apart where God has refined it. But man, those principles came from my dad.
He
There
had
are
'em.
some positive where it's like, the biggest thing, and oh my gosh, Maddie's heard me quote this 5,000 times, right? But like, he said, Deej, I put my pants on just like they put theirs
Right.
up, right?
every day he would say that.
And it's like,
Yep.
I'm not
sure.
going to be scared of anybody or anything like that.
Yeah.
No.
And granted, they're egotistical mindset, like if you're not careful, but like you can use those in the good, right?
Yeah,
And
for
those are
sure.
some of the, memories for me that, that I like to hold on to. Like, man, there
Yeah.
were some good,
Yeah.
Right.
there were some good principles, granted, dressed like an idiot at times,
Oh my God.
You remember the short,
short.
I think he would wear that stuff just to get in fights.
I've heard both of you guys describe some of the outfits he's chosen, and I'm like, what are
anywhere
you
we
doing?
went, we were the magnet.
Oh.
People, hey, they wanted what he had.
Yeah.
It was insane.
He had that confidence, and it
Right.
was not cocky.
Right.
He just had something about him.
Yeah.
Right.
And I still think today he has that.
Oh, yeah.
It's there.
Right.
He's lost confidence
Right.
in himself. You
Yeah.
know, I mean, in a sense, I
Yeah.
don't know how to describe it, but
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and I think like I remember talking to Selena, and I was like, man, if God ever gets a hold of him
Yeah.
and this,
Oh.
and that, and she goes, Dylan, and it was such a like good compliment for me. She goes, Dylan, you're looking at it, and I said, what do you mean? She goes, you're talking about if somebody ever got a hold, if God ever got a hold of your dad and he surrendered, just the impact that he could have, and she goes, you're that. And I just remember being like, oh.
Right.
Like, because I
Yeah.
was never going to be my dad. Like, I remember going to Jock 98.7 and Ed Reynolds, are you going to be the next Sean Rob? I'm like,
yeah.
yeah, I knew I wasn't going to be my dad.
Yeah.
Like, I knew I wasn't going to dress like him, right? So now I wear skinny jeans instead. Right. But man, just I did. I valued those beliefs and all that, which was awesome, right? For so long. But then, the older I got, the more I realized like, okay, man, that's good, but there's some things behind the scenes, where I think as I got older, I quit pretending, you want to, and I'm not here to speak on anybody bad, but the reality is, I've shared my story time and time again. There came that point in time where I looked at my mom, looked at my dad, looked at everyone around me, and I'm like, I'm done pretending, And so so you guys were, dating and things like that. And then I remember us living together, and at first it was just fun because first of all, I didn't grow up in the church. I didn't know anything about God or anything like that. So we're just kind of living together and all that. But then all of a sudden, I remember when it was serious. Okay, we're a family now. We're gonna be together. And I was going back and forth between Marshfield and Springfield, and we moved a million times. A million times, man.
We'll be driving in Springfield, and you point out, we live there. Oh, we live there together.
Right.
Oh, and I'm like, okay.
Oh man,
it was crazy. It
was. It was.
But kind of explain what that was like on your side of things. Where you guys are dating, it's fun, tough man.
Yeah.
But then that whole facade began to go away, and it's like, now here's the reality in which we're living in. What was that like for your side? Because I have mine, but man, I would love to hear, just your interpretation of that.
So I can remember at one point, Sean, bringing up the fact that when I was kind of going through a divorce and I got pregnant, okay, you're not allowed to get divorced in the state of Missouri if you're pregnant. So I had to have Jagger, and he was born with, somebody else's name. Right. It was hard for me. The whole situation was hard. And I remember being angry. What do I do when I'm angry? As I would use, to hide those things. But I just remember Sean saying, Angie, I don't want to have that. I don't want to have this kind of relationship with you. He didn't want to fight with me. And I don't know at what point that switched where we became against each other. And it was hard. I
remember I was in 7th grade, and I found out that I was got a brother, right? Because I was I grew up an only child, and so and I remember being so excited, but then I was a little bit nervous because at that point in time I realized there was a shift within you guys where I like to say you can change your environment, but if you don't change who you are, your environment will follow you, and I'd watch the fighting and all that stuff with my mom and dad, and then with you guys, I was like, okay, maybe this'll be the new norm, where it's good. And then it was for a little bit, but
for about 2 years,
and then all of a sudden it was like, okay, there's still some of the same stuff here, and then you guys started arguing a little bit, but when Jagger was born, what was that like after Jag was born?
It was really hard. I was so tired all the time, and I just didn't have the energy. I think I had, postpartum more so than I probably tried to lead on, and I was afraid to ever ask for help. And if I did, I was always put on some pharmaceutical. So at that point, kind of going back, I was addicted to Xanax for a long time. And anytime somebody tried to pull that from me, things weren't going to be good. Right. I remember a doctor one time prescribing me church and exercise, and I thought he was insane. Right. Okay. He literally told me, "No, we're not going to give you those. You're going to need." Yeah. Right. And I'm like, "No, I'm leaving. I'm not leaving this place until." Right. Yeah. Right. So eventually, I got kicked out of being on that doctor with that doctor. Right. But that was at that point, I wanted to destroy anything that was good. Right. And I had a hard time bonding with my kids. I think that with Sean and I seen him trying to control me more and more as the longer we were together. We did try to attempt going to church, North Point. Do you remember
a couple times maybe.
Yeah, okay. We did. Okay, so when it was being built, I'm like, we're driving on I-44, and I'm like, oh, wow, there's something about that church, And so we tried to attend that, and we, tried to do good by each other and our kids. Right. We really did. We had that nice house. We had a couple nice houses.
Yeah. Well, we had a million duplexes, right? And then a million this. And then I remember we had that house. And I was
That
like,
house.
dude, we made it now.
We made it.
You know,
It was
because I
perfect.
was from the north side of Springfield, and then it was on McLernan Street.
Okay.
You know, and it was like every place we lived in, and it's like, well, maybe this will be, you know, a new
Home.
And yeah, and like
Yeah.
now it's like whether we were moving, you know, from evictions or just like fights or just different places, right? All that mess. But I remember that McLernan house because it was different than any house I'd ever
Yeah.
stayed in. I was like,
Yeah.
okay, here we go. But like that's where, like when I go back in my mind of memories, like of just like visualization, that's the house, you know?
Yeah.
Like,
Oh, yeah.
I mean, that's
Yeah.
where I think that's
Even
where
for
it all
Damon.
started,
Yeah.
you know? But even before, actually, as I think about that, even before we moved there, like the most vivid memory that I have, or one of them, was Damon and Jagger was over, and obviously Jagger was there, but Damon was over, and you and my dad got into it. And I remember one night, man, just I mean, it was going and going, you know, fighting and argument. And by this point in time, I'd seen it quite a bit, but like there's one night, man, I remember Jagger was just a little kid, you know, have him here and Damon here, and I remember Damon just saying like, you know, why is your dad being so mean to my mom, and just crying
Yeah.
and screaming. You guys were fighting, and I just remember saying it's gonna be okay. I was
Yeah.
like, guys,
Yeah.
it's gonna be all right.
Yeah.
And I mean, I was young. I don't know how old I was, but I remember remember right then and there, like, dude, I got to be a protector for him.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
it's gonna be okay. And it's like I feel like from then on out, that was kind of the norm of just fighting like crazy. And we moved to McLernan, and I'm like, okay, maybe it'll be different. But man, that was just that's when it all went down.
Right.
You know what I noticed the most, though, for me as an addict, and this all goes back, underlying of everything, I was an addict. Okay, an addict trying to be a mother.
Right.
The hardest thing ever. At that point, when you're an addict trying to be a mother, you've got so many things in your way from you being able to use.
Right.
It's aggravating.
Yeah.
It's aggravating, and then we fail ultimately, you know. And I think that's why today so many people are losing their children to DFS
Right.
because we choose a substance
Right.
over having a relationship with our kids and caring about their well-being.
Right.
So here's where I seen Sean at that point is that he would try to regulate what Angie could use.
Right.
I was at home with the boys, and I used to get so mad. You know, I couldn't even go get diapers. He would have to bring them to me. It got to that.
Wow.
I didn't have my own money anymore. I didn't have my job. I always had those things.
Right.
It didn't matter. I always could rely on myself to
Right.
get whatever I needed whenever I needed it. And all of a sudden, my livelihood was in Sean's hands. And his personality is that he's going to get you under his thumb
Right.
regardless. I mean, granted, yes, he's, you know, we had fun, we had a good person. It's his personality. He's kind of a little bit of a, I mean, I don't want to classify anybody. I'm not a doctor.
Yeah.
A little bit narcissistic.
Right.
You know, you could see the tendencies, which I was attracted to men like that.
Yeah.
Right. Well, there was such darkness, and you throw the drugs on top of it. It was
Right.
just dysfunction.
Oh,
Yeah.
On both ends. you
And I
know?
was so selfish.
Right. Well,
Oh, I was so selfish. But if you
Right.
would have told me I was selfish, I'd be like,
Right.
you need to leave my presence.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, like, what do you remember the most about, you know, we're at McLernan, you know, because I remember this, like, you know, so I smelled the pot, you know, the marijuana, right? And I knew there was other stuff. Yeah, all the time. Hey, DJ, let me know when somebody's coming over, right? Okay, I wonder why.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
But man, I remember like that stuff, like fighting and drugs was always going, you know, on. But man, I always pretended like I didn't know and I knew
Right.
everything. But then then there came that point. So I was like, you know, 8th grade, freshman year, you know, then it was just like, that's when it hit its peak, man. Like just, I mean, it was like, just rumble every night, you know?
Yeah, and I think we moved like twice in between that from the McLernan of
Really?
when we would fight all the time.
You just lose track of time. You
Right,
know?
right,
But like,
yeah.
I remember, you know, all of a sudden, cops coming, right? And it was like, not the show cops, like actual cops, you know? And
At that point, that's when my dad was calling him
Yeah.
a lot,
The DA
worried
coming
about
in.
my safety
Right.
and the kids.
Right. And it was just, I mean, the fighting and abuse and drugs, you know, just kept getting real. But I remember, and I tell this story in my book, that I think it was my 14th birthday, 15th, one of them.
It was your 14.
14th, you know, and like I remember I woke up that day and I was, playing baseball and my cousin Chet, he's no longer here with us, but like, we were hanging out that day. But like, I remember that one specifically because like my birthday wasn't acknowledged that much from my dad and things like that of that nature. I'm like, oh, that's fine. I have a game that night. And so we went and played that game, and then we came back, and like that night, it was I could just tell, like, now I know just darkness, but like, I think I could always tell when, there was some drugs around, but like this particular night, it was like, there was like it was either a different drug or it was like more of it. And I remember just like looking, I'm like, there's something different, man. And I didn't know what, but I went downstairs, and me and Chet, we're just playing the game, and, and every night, like I could not laugh about it, but you and I sitting here now, we like it's not funny at all, but like almost can just like, yeah, I know exactly what you mean. But I remember you guys would just start in on each other, and I would just kind of like I'd always be downstairs or in a different room if we had a different house, and I just wonder, I'm like, okay, 30 seconds would go by, and then I'd hear and then raise a little voice, and then and I'm like, just stop. And Chet was there, and he was just looking at me and like, "Hey, we're fine, man, we're fine." But man, we've seen a million fights, right? And not just little fights. I mean, big, but this one, man, was the one where it's like, whoa. And but I was sitting there, and all of a sudden, I think glass breaks on the wall, and then boom, 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 it just
broke over my head.
It was just like WWE, man.
That was probably the worst one ever.
Yeah, and I just remember, you coming down and won't get into all the details, but I just remember you essentially hiding,
Yeah, trying to hide from it. And I just, it was, you just didn't know what was going to come out of it.
Right.
Like, because I remember he would tell me that I was trying to, be in the center of attention and things like that. That really wasn't my personality. I was unable at that point to even be myself around anybody.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And I kind of was losing like who Angie was. Yeah. But then I forget I'm even a mom, right? I'm just trying to survive this, and I didn't really know the links of, so the next day I got dropped off downtown with Jagger at a domestic violence shelter.
Right. And that night though, I remember, like, get drugged up by your hair and all that.
Yeah, choked out.
Yeah, and granted, like, there's so many things involved there, and we can details, but like I remember that one vividly, and just like, Chet crying, and I'm like, holding him, like, hey, it's okay. And it's like, wait, this is my house though. Like, but it was just so normal to me, you know?
Yeah.
And that, even as a kid, all of a sudden, that anger, not just on my dad's side, it was also with my mom, like that anger just developed where I'm like, I hate you, and I hate you, and I hate you, and I hate you. And not where I just, just like bitter every day. It was just, I don't care. I just hate everything. I hate you guys. I hate, so, drugs and all that started with me. But man, there you were that next day at the the shelter, and I feel like after that fight, that and granted, I probably don't remember everything correctly, the timeline, but I remember that was like one of the last ones where, or you said we moved after, but I just remember where it's like
it changed everything.
It changed, and then the cops got involved, and
then DFS,
and DFS took Jag away, and I tell the story many times. DFS came and took Jagger.
So that was in 2007.
Okay.
They were removed in 2008.
Okay.
And it was after, I even got my own apartment away from your dad because that was one of the stipulations. Mind you, I'm still on meth the whole time, right? Okay. And I'm not really trying to look at that as a problem. Nope. Sean was my problem.
Right.
And that's kind of where, in the midst of addiction with children, we don't want to give up that. We want to give it blame to other people. And so I got my own place. I did what they asked me to do, and they still took them. And I can be like, this is the hardest thing for me. Listen, it's the hardest thing for me to actually have to look at my life when I became a mom and not be like, look at what these papers say about me. Look at how they classified me. I had papers in my garage that I needed my dad to burn, right? He comes over. This is just the other day. He's like, you got those papers? I'm like, yeah, you want to see them? You want to see what these people have to say about me back then, Dad?
Right.
Hey, let's, and then all this stuff's coming up. And I'm like, whoa, what have I been working on the last 3 years?
Right.
Whoa, it went out My dad's like, hey,
Poke the heart.
you
like
just
the
Yeah.
sauce.
you just put them in, because I had to have psych evaluations done.
Right.
And I have a 17 pages of this guy telling me that I'm absolutely nothing.
Right.
But just, wish-washy, throwing my arms around,
Right.
Yeah.
and it's whatever.
Right.
Okay, because he's just, a doctor, right?
Yeah.
But those, at that point, when you're a drug addict, you have to hold those people in high regard because you know what? Hey, dude, you just helped me lose my kids in my eyes.
Right.
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 Can
Yeah.
you say anything nice about me? Did you not know I worked at a bank?
Right. Right.
Type of deal,
100%.
right?
Yeah.
So it's really
Your
hard.
identity. Yeah, you're trying to figure out what that is. And I remember on my end, because there were many times I changed Jag's diaper. That was my little guy. And
Right.
he had that crazy hair.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and all of a sudden he got removed, and I would see him once a week for 30 minutes. At downtown Springfield, which is symbolic later on. But I would go in there, and at this point in time, and that's the thing, I never did sides or anything because my mom and dad put me through that. And I'm like, no, screw that. There's always two sides. And I saw, what he did, saw what you did. And I'm like, it's not anybody. I'm focused on Jagger, and I
at
just
that
remember that.
point.
I had such anger,
Right.
just like at everyone, but I'm like, that's my little brother, man. And I loved him and took care of him so many times. And I'd see him once a week for 30 minutes. And then we would go, we start going down that alley, and, we'd go down that building in the elevator, and the DFS worker, was holding Jagger's hand, and Jagger was holding mine. And Jag was little, but he knew what was going to come.
Yeah.
And he began to squeeze my hand, and she would rip him away, and he would just start screaming, I want to go, my big puppy, I want to go. I just remember just gritting my teeth and looking at him. I say, buddy, I'll see you next week.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
said, and I would get in my dad's car, and I broke down. Nobody ever saw me cry on public. Man, my heart just broke, and I'm like, dude, this is not fair.
Yeah.
It's not fair. And it's even funny because I knew by this point in time I'm using drugs, and doing things like that, but I knew he needed something different, but I couldn't give it to him.
Yeah.
Right.
His dad, his mom, no one around. I mean,
None
no
of
one
us.
around could do that.
Yeah.
None of us.
For him.
And it's that's the hardest thing to really look at too as a mom is to look back at that. And I when they started hair sampling us,
Yeah.
I had 4 hair samples. I went to rehab twice in 2 years, and I had over 150 urine tests.
Wow.
Whoa.
And I still could not stop starting. And it's hard.
Yeah.
It's hard to look at it in the face and see it at face value. It is.
Well, you get into it.
Well, Sean and I became each other's worst enemies
Yeah.
now. So here I lost everything. I was at an apartment by myself. Couldn't have visitation from either of my kids because they had me classified as crazy. And who wants to come knock on my door is Sean.
Yeah.
And you know what answered the door? Crazy.
Right.
Okay?
Right.
Yeah. And we always had the cops called. It
Yeah.
was so crazy that we were trying to get out of this deal, and we only made it worse for each other.
Right.
And, and that's one of those things where you learn as having a relationship with people and things. And
It's just where you were at.
well, yeah, but you know what? I needed to cut everybody out of my life if I wanted something different.
But
And
what-
I didn't know that.
And I'm curious because I know the end of the story now, but so you guys separate, and then eventually Jagger gets to live with Grandma Terry and all
Yeah.
that. And I would see him there, which by this point in time, I think I'd gotten saved, and I got saved, and I was just I didn't know about prayer at all, right? I got saved, and I went to John and Selena, and they knew the situation, and I told them about Jagger, and they said pray. I'm like, all right.
Okay.
Sounds
We're gonna
good.
pray.
Yeah.
And there was no way that they were gonna let him live with anyone of our family at that point in time. That was the narrative that
Right.
we heard. Or at least I was told. But I prayed.
Yeah.
Prayed, and then all of a sudden he got to come and live. With Grandma Terry, and
How old was Jagger at that time?
I don't know.
4.
He's 4. Okay.
4. Okay.
And so I would have been 16 years old, and I would just just praying and believing, and then all of a sudden that happens, and so I give my heart to the Lord, and you are still doing what you're doing, but what was, I don't think we've ever talked about that,
Yeah.
when you found out that I gave my heart to Jesus and all of that, do you even remember at that point in time?
Well, I do. And, what I remember I remember even more of him being able to go with you and me being just, oh, God, something of.
So you were relieved then?
Oh yeah, relieved for sure, for sure. I'm trying to think of like the timeline. I think that was 2010.
Yeah, it was.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, and then I try to think of where I was at in 2010. So it was 2010 or 11 is when I actually got the case closed with guardianship to Terry.
Okay.
And was able to have Terry and Jagger move in with me.
Oh, wow.
Okay, in Nixa, do you remember that part?
Bit, yeah.
Yeah, that's where Jagger went to school, first or kindergarten, or first grade, and then in a little bit of second. So, but I still continued to use,
Right.
and it's just such a wrecking ball because in 2012 they raided my house and I lost everything I'd worked for, my relationship with him again, and it went reverse. You know, and I just think about the establishment of where I just never even prayed. I never even.
I mean, God
prayed.
wasn't really. Nobody really ever showed him in front of you or taught you the way either.
You know, when I was younger, I remember my mom taking me. You know, and my dad even took me, and I was so against of hearing anything, even as a kid, about it because I just didn't understand what was that going to do for me.
Right.
Okay, I just didn't know. But and I remember getting confirmed as a Methodist. I was baptized Lutheran, but I just didn't pray. I didn't know, and I just thought I had some type of power. I thought I did.
Yeah.
Right.
And I just thought that it's not a big deal that I'm using meth because these people don't even realize, like, I can't feel.
Right.
Like I just got to be numb to this whole thing.
Right.
This all needs to stop.
Right.
I remember crying, thinking, how is Angie going to get this to stop?
Right.
I don't have any power,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
And I definitely didn't have any positive power even then, you know?
So when they raided you, and you lost Jag, I mean, did that put you in a downhill spiral? Or?
Oh, yeah. So, gosh, yeah, that was a long few years. So and I moved to Marshfield, got a little apartment. So in this time frame, you all have to remember that I was classified crazy and was put on disability by the state. Even got a big check in the mail because this guy wrote up this paper about me. Yeah. And I was addicted to those benzos, which is Xanax, and then meth on top of that. So it just was a snowball effect. And so I was getting a check. So then I really didn't have to do anything or straighten up.
Right.
Because
you're getting paid for it.
Well, yeah. And I put my time in. I thought, okay. So state of Missouri's like, yeah, here you go. And I'm like, really? You guys think I'm crazy? So it's the DFS lady who talked me into even applying for it. And I'm like, I'm not disabled. Right? I just need you guys to leave me alone. Let me be a mom. And okay, Sean, you guys go deal with him, okay? Because you know what?
Yeah.
Oh man, he'd take them on a run. You know, he didn't. He's like, yeah, we can beat this. Right? That's his motto on a lot of things is we can beat this. But anyway, so I moved to Marshfield, got an apartment, and then lost that. And here's the crazy thing about 2014 for me. The same week, I was found not guilty in the raid because they were trying to press or charge me with possession when somebody planted something in my trash. Okay? 2 years I spent going to court. All my money would go to my lawyer because was I guilty? I was guilty of some things.
Yeah.
But there wasn't anything in my trash. And I knew those guys they were trying to get me, and this seems so crazy to talk about this here. Regardless, they were trying to get me to be on their side in a sense.
Yeah.
Okay. I wouldn't work with them, so they pressed out this case on me. I was found not guilty, but I was evicted from my apartment all in the same week. And my dad met me at a store in Ozark. And he's like, here you go. And I thought he was going to give me some money to help me with my rent. I just needed to pay 2 months. And he handed me a rock. It said, pray. And I was like, whatever. Okay?
Yeah.
Whatever. And I was homeless for 2.5 years.
Wow.
Living out of your car, right?
Living out of my car.
And around that time is when, because I was living with John and Selena.
Yeah.
And, Jag would come and hang out with me at times.
Yeah.
And that's where you got introduced to Selena, right?
Yes, who actually told me that God loved me and that he had something special for me. And I just couldn't wrap my mind around it. And so when you think about, everything I've just said about it, this is where it comes to is this faith, and for this beautiful lady to even want to have time to sit down and talk to me.
Mm-hmm.
And mind you, at that point, I was probably high talking to her.
Right.
She laughs telling that now. She's like, she doesn't, she's oblivious.
Right.
She's like, I just thought she was energetic. You know?
Bless her heart.
Yeah.
Right? Bless her heart,
Right.
because she just sees the good in
Yeah.
everything.
She
Right.
does.
I love
she
her.
totally does.
She changed my whole perception on people,
Yeah.
and people that really care and don't have to be related to you and have the best
Right.
intentions for you. And she's the one that said, God loves you, Angie, and he's got big plans for you.
Mm-hmm.
You just have to be willing.
Right. That's probably the first time in maybe your whole life
Ever.
you
That's
just began
somebody
to just,
of-
well, that you thought about it. You're like, wow, maybe this is true.
Oh, hey, and you know what? For me, after meeting her, getting high was never the same.
Really?
Because it was like this, when am I going to stop? Because I believe in her.
Right. And what she
I
told
believe
you.
what this lady,
Yeah.
this
And you-
Selena says.
and it was her, but you knew there was something behind it.
Yeah.
You knew it was like, this is God. Like there's, but
Yeah.
like, and that's the thing. People, a lot of times they know about God, but they don't know him. But once you know God, like the scripture just comes to me right now. You know, we find it in John where it's the adulterous woman. She's caught in adultery, and the Pharisees go out to, just to stone her. And, they look to Jesus and say, Jesus, the Old Testament law says to stone her. If she's caught in adultery, what do you say? And he just ignores them and writes in the ground. And then he looks up at the religious people and says, you without sin, throw the first stone.
Yeah.
And says one by one, they dropped him. And she looks up and he goes, where's your accusers? And she goes, there are none. He goes, I don't accuse you either.
Yeah.
Ooh, that's powerful.
It is.
And I just feel like, different context there for you, but I feel like that's, the Lord just kind of gave me that right there. It's like maybe you looked up for the first time and, oh, I'm not the drug addict. I'm not the mom.
Right.
And I think like a lot of that, like the disability and all that, you lost yourself.
I
You kept
lost
going.
me. Yeah.
And you're searching for everything else. And then God just sitting here saying, come, all who are weary and weak. John chapter 4, you find the woman at the well, and he's like,
Yeah.
you've been thirsty, but for the wrong thing.
Right.
And here I am.
For the wrong
you know?
thing. Yeah.
And I think, once you started thinking that, you're like, okay, like maybe I can have this for the first time. Like maybe I could,
Right.
have this, because when you're in such darkness, you don't believe you can have it, you know?
Right. And, just real quick to go back
Yeah.
to 1997 at the bank, a lady come in on who I would help with her checking account often. Her name was Linda. Brought me a Bible with my name engraved on it. Okay, so I held on to that.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I look back and I remember, and I don't mean to be breaking this up, but to go back in 2006 when I had the near-death experience with my gallbladder. We were all living together. Okay, I appeared above of everybody in a cloud. I went down the tunnel of darkness, completely quiet, no light was ever appearing, but I could hear my name being called by Sean, and I wasn't coming to, and I wasn't, and I was bleeding internally, and I had to have 4 blood transfusions and was in the hospital for 5 days. But that near-death experience has only become more real to me here the longer I'm sober.
Right.
Okay. So like after that happening to me, I busted out that Bible. Okay. And I was trying to find out who Sean was in this Bible, because I'm pretty sure he was kind of mean to me. And I wasn't sure. But here's the thing, the things that I underlined are the things in Proverbs.
Yeah.
The stuff that I refer to today as, wisdom,
Right.
absolutely.
Going
But
to. Right.
So who would have ever thought? But, and it's just kind of random. So, but then when I met Selena, and I'm like, I
connecting
loved
the dots.
Linda, but
Yeah.
there's something
Right.
about Selena that
there's
I was
a-
like, oh.
Yeah.
Well, there's a theological word called prevenient grace, which means a grace that goes before, meaning even when we're sinners, even when
Yeah.
we're not following him, God's still there.
Yeah.
He's still working. We just don't recognize him. He's at work. And it's fun. He plants seeds in us little by little.
Right.
And so
Yeah.
then you're connected on these dots. You're like, was that Sean? Was it Proverbs? Was it Linda? Was it Steve? And God's like, I use them, but
All
it's
of
me.
it.
Yeah.
You
Right.
know? And God can use anybody. He can use Satan to accomplish his purposes,
Right.
And so I think that's what's so cool. So like that's planted, you're connecting those dots. And then like I remember you tell the story, it's so powerful, about your dad and you're going to core. Like what was that like? Because there was
Yeah.
you met him somewhere or something like
Oh,
that.
my poor dad. And, through this whole deal,
Yeah.
my dad just to be like, get your book out. You need to read, and talking about the AA book, which ultimately gave me the directions and the outline that I followed for
Right.
the next for the first 2 years of my sobriety. And even today, I still, I have it sitting on my bed.
Yeah.
So, my dad, so we got to back up just for a second because 2016, October, I got arrested out there in John and Selena's apartments out there.
Yes, I remember that.
Marshfield. Oh,
Yeah.
hey, yeah, outlaw, right? No.
Right.
But in her eyes, I mean, I can just imagine Selena, and it's funny now,
Right.
they threw out
Right.
the charges and stuff, but I was charged with interruption of a government operation.
Right.
I'm in the wrong place at the wrong time,
Yeah.
right? But so that kind of got me to go into where when I woke up in Webster County Jail, like this is not what I want to do.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay, but this is what I'm going to be doing if I don't seriously turn something around. Okay, my son watched me get arrested. And so me talking with Selena, okay, she's like, whatever you need me to do, Ange. And I'm like, okay, I'm gonna come over and we're gonna fax this application. She's like, okay, and it's one of those things where people are like, they're willing, but are you really gonna do something
Right.
with it? Even my dad, I'll pay the deposit, let's go. Me, my addict self is like, well, one more day, But anyways, got it sent in, got accepted. I was in
CORE, right?
to CORE,
Yeah.
yeah, in
Which is
Branson,
rehab.
yeah, which is a
Christian babe.
Christian
Yeah.
based, yeah. So January 11th, 2017, my dad is like, I'm going to meet you on the highway in Ozark, right there. I'll be at the exit. Of course, I get up a little late, and but you know what was so powerful about that day is it never not one time crossed my mind about getting high before I went.
Really?
Yes.
And that's probably first time ever.
Yeah.
First time in
Yeah.
years.
Long time.
Years. Because typically I would get up and I would be so dizzy that I would have to lay back down.
Wow.
Today, I'm doing good that day.
Yeah. Right.
And got in the car, called my dad. I'm like, I'm on my way. And he's thinking, okay,
Wow.
I'm sitting on the side of the highway on 65.
Right.
And there I go, passing my dad. And that song, This Is My Fight song was on.
Yeah.
Okay. What a powerful song that is today even, right? And there's my dad. And I'm like,
Right.
and he followed me to Branson and got me in. And when I sat down on my bed in CORE, mind you, all my stuff had been in my car for 2.5 years.
Wow.
How old were you at this point in time?
40.
Wow.
Okay.
40 years of trials and tribulations.
Right. What's funny, you said at 20 years old, I'm going to do it.
Right.
Yeah.
And then here you are 20 years later, but then here you are, you're going, like most people just, they refuse to go back.
Yeah.
I mean, there you,
Yeah.
like, obviously it was God, but like once you got down there, like, what was your mindset? Like,
Yeah.
were you excited? Were you like, what am I doing?
Here it is. You know what I was excited about was the fact that this is a permanent place. I don't have to go anywhere.
Right.
Like, I was so tired of having to sleep with if I went to sleep, I would have to sleep with my car keys around my neck because I couldn't trust anybody I was around.
Right.
I couldn't let anybody in my car because they would steal everything you have.
Yeah.
Okay. I was tired of that fight because that's what it came to.
Right.
My addiction in the beginning wasn't like that. I could have people over at my house and it was fun. At this point, using was a necessity and people around you were
just escalated.
Oh, yeah. So when I sat down on my bed at CORE, I looked up and I said, thank you. Because Branson had weight on my heart. And this is what's crazy too about it is me talking to Jagger 2 years prior to this. I'm like, I think I'm going to go to Branson, Jag. He's like, he's a kid and he's so like, whatever.
Yes.
And all these things shouldn't even be his worry ever, right? But we're going to, bounce it off a 10-year-old
Yeah.
But to Branson, I don't know why it kept weighing on my heart. And then I ended up there at CORE.
Yeah.
And all I can tell you is that the word obsession was kind of my word of the year that year. And then willingness and discipline. Those are probably the three things that I had to really dive into because I had inconsistent,
Yeah.
being
What was your
consistent.
spiritual growth there? Like when you're there, because I remember I saw you for the first time or talked to you and I was like, the chick's on fire for the Lord,
Yeah.
And I could tell. What was that like? Do you recall just your interaction with God? Like, what was that like?
I do because, I'd been going to the well. Okay, so there was times, because the well started in 2016, right? And that I would sit outside the hotel that it started at, and I would just be too high to go in, but just wanting to go.
Yeah.
Just, and then when I finally would, it was always good, but I just would want to just cry a lot. I just wanted change.
Yeah.
But to go down to core, and I stayed close. I didn't travel too far from anything, Friday nights, they'd schedule me to work. I'm going to church, going to church. I had to get that when I learned the obsession, the cycle of addiction, when I really sat and listened to that first class, that first day I was there, I was like, that's it.
Right.
Yeah.
That's it. And it just kept, because then you realize that obsession keeps you so blocked
Right.
from the truth
Yeah.
and from the light.
Yeah.
The light that you can give glory to God, because really, who are you giving any glory to? That substance.
Right.
Yeah.
Always.
Right.
Because you hold it in high regard, and anybody get in the middle of it, and
Right.
you're out.
Relationship.
Relationship.
It's like the Lord just began to show you his love, humbled you, all
Humbled
that.
me.
Then all of a sudden, next thing I know, you're leading a house full of these
Yeah.
girls,
Yeah.
man, and you're taking them to church, and you're telling them about Jesus, and you're getting all up in their business, and what was that process like of God just,
Wow.
he
It was,
saved you, and then he's using you now.
Right.
So I get there, and it's like one of those things where, just fit in.
Right.
I
Yeah.
just grooved with core. Like, never one time did it ever cross my mind that I was going to leave. Not ever.
Right.
And that has never happened to me. Never. Even as a kid, I was always thinking of, I need to go.
Right.
Something's got to change, like right now. And it doesn't matter if it's for the good or the bad.
Right.
I'm going to make it happen.
Right.
Yeah. So just to get in there and just get with like-minded people. And I had a friend that was down there. I don't even really think I realized that Sherry was in core. I knew that Sherry at one point was looking at prison time, but she ended up being a house manager there too. So then I had a friend that we had ran around, and she's still doing great still today, that was there. And I seen I was like, whoa, come a long ways from last time I seen you. Right. So, there's your other hope. But so I just got in there, and I just fit.
Yeah.
And everybody's is going to be different.
Right.
Some people are going to, go to core and be like, that didn't really work for me. But okay.
Yeah.
But here you got to let your guard down and say, is it me?
Right.
Or is it,
Yeah.
I think
good.
it's also, from afar, like watching this, it clicked. Like, man, all of a sudden you're sober, and then all of a sudden it was like a year and a half, and then just watching the transformation.
So,
and people see Angie and like, there's no way she's ever like done drugs. And
Right.
I'm like,
I
if you only
mean-
knew, like, and just like seeing what happened. But I think one of the most powerful things was, when you grow up as a kid in that environment, you learn to set up boundaries and guardrails, and you don't know if you can trust.
Yeah.
And
I
me,
still
Jagger
struggle.
and I, we'd just been, brothers, but like just buds for so long, just, help take care of him and all that for so many years. And all of a sudden his mom's doing good. And he's lived with his grandma for so long. And then he realized, like, okay, my mom's solid now.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
he would go and stay with you at the home and watch
Oh,
you
yeah.
lead. And I just remember just talking with him a little bit. And of course, he's not too outspoken, so I'd have to pull it out of him.
Oh yeah, right. He isn't, but it's when you've changed is when your kid comes and stays with you and doesn't leave.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's where I'm like, and that's what I want to hit on. Like, what was that like for you as your mom? You went through
Right.
all this stuff,
Yeah.
right?
So
and then at this point where my boy trusts me and I can actually be his mom now. What was that
Right.
like for you?
So you figure 26 years of active addiction, and pretty much everybody gave up on you.
Yeah.
Even you have given up on yourself. Where you're like teeth crack and
Yeah.
Right.
whatever.
Right.
Yeah. So when I go to core, and Jagger would come down to Branson and visit me and stuff, and then Damon not so much in for the group thing, but he was a little, I think at that point, a year or two old to actually stay in the house. So Jagger was right there. So, Jagger come test the waters, kind of see, because they want to see, kids want to see, they want to see where their mom's at and stuff. And so when they asked me to be a house manager, it just all worked out. Okay, so you're going to put me back in a town that I ran around, right?
Right.
But I needed it.
Yeah.
I think that if I would have stayed in a protective environment,
Right.
I don't think that would have been good for my growth. Okay, so I become a house manager, and then Jagger would come stay with me
In Springfield.
in Springfield. Yeah, which was scary
Right.
in a sense, but I knew it would be better because Damon was right down the road, and I could go to all their functions and stuff. And and then mind you, I didn't have a real good car. I had a car that I had to put water in every day.
Right.
Well, I was okay with it. I was
Yeah.
used to it. But then all of a sudden, these blessings, my dad's like, here, I'm going to help you with this car.
Right.
So then I could, actually go places and do things with the kids and
Right.
not have to worry about the car overheating. And I didn't know what blessings were, mind you.
Right.
I really didn't.
Right.
I didn't until things just started falling into place. And
Yeah.
I kept at a core, they would use blessings a lot in teaching their program and teaching their classes and stuff. So year rolls around. Jagger's like looking at his watch, basically like, you said you were only going to be gone a year, Mom. And I'm like, I'm going to have to stay another year. And not because I don't want to be your mom and I don't, but I just need to stay another year.
Yeah.
Not what he's wanting to hear.
But I just want to insert real quick on that because, like, you, personal experience, so many times where, just say other people in my family who just say, oh, hey, I'm good now, Dylan, and so I'm going to come right back. And it's like, no, you don't need to do that, and I don't want you to do that. You need to go get well.
Right.
And I love your humility in that because I remember talking to you in person or on the phone and just saying, I know in the short term, in the temporal, Jag will want you here, but in the long term, that's not going to be the most beneficial.
Right.
And I remember just watching you pray and just asking God, and you humbled yourself and you did that. And man, that's when I knew this chick loves the Lord.
Yeah.
It's not a question if God loves us, it's do we love him? And then when I saw you love God and you humbled yourself and you did the right thing for the long term rather than the short term,
Right.
that's when I knew it's real.
Yeah.
It's real.
You know?
Yeah. And so, another benefit of me coming to Springfield was the well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I got to go to church on Sundays, and that's when I really could get down on my
Were you
knees.
like, what the heck? How's Dylan preaching at the church?
Yeah. I mean, what a driving force, right? I mean, nothing better than to be like, wow.
What the
Yeah,
heck? Yeah.
wow. Yeah. And
Crazy.
so it just all worked out. And, I was in that program for 26 months.
Wow.
But here's another thing. Bad credit, nothing makes sense on paper, but I get a duplex and money to move out.
Right.
Bam. And
Yeah.
got, and it just all fell into place. Like
Now Jag lives with you.
now Jagger
Which is
lives with me.
amazing.
What's that like, man?
Yeah.
Like, because
It's just great.
So it's just great. But that's what I love, man. People, you hear this raw, that's what I love about testimonies. You share the hard parts, and it's like, and then all of a sudden you get to this Jesus part, and you get to the blessing part.
Blessings.
Blessings.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then it's just like you can breathe, and it's like ease, and it's like that's the goodness of God.
Right.
I'm quoting Christian worship songs right now, right? But man, like people never get that. What you said, like I just preached a sermon called "Pave the Way," and we since we have the curses and the blessings, but man, the curses are just our sinful nature, and it's just generation after generation. But then there's a blessing.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so man, I get saved, and then Jagger got saved and got baptized in the same church I did, and it went on, and then here like we're working out. And me and Jagger are together, and I'm picking him up and dropping him off at his mom's house every day. And I'm like,
Which you never thought would happen again.
and so we were in the car the other day, and the blessing song, came on. And I looked at Jag, I said, buddy, and my little brother, Javen was in there. I said, fellas, I said, I know it's hard probably for you guys to really comprehend it, but I said, you're inheriting God's blessings now.
Yeah.
And someone's paved
Right.
the way, And what's cool, God used Jagger to really get me to this place of surrender. Then God used Jagger to get you to surrender.
Yeah. Mhm.
And now you're the mom and able just to raise him and for Jagger to live with you. And I mean, dude, so many people don't get to see that.
Right.
Right.
And you've got to do it. And so now I ask a couple more questions. Number one, like, I know one thing for you was, it was hard for you to forgive yourself and for you to trying to earn back those years and all that. How did you go about that with Jagger and Damon? Just like, hey, what's happened has happened, but from this day forward, I'm going to do this. What was that like?
It's tough. It's still tough some days because I think about where we're at and I know like that if I wouldn't have screwed up so much that maybe we would have more. But I can't look at things like that, and I can't have Jagger looking at social media, looking at other people's Christmas trees and bringing it to me and me not getting a little upset with him because he doesn't realize that, granted, our Christmas tree may not look like that,
Right.
but their story isn't looking like yours
Exactly.
either, and
Right.
you don't know what's going on behind their doors.
Right.
So
Right.
here's the deal, Jag.
Yeah.
We don't have arguing, cussing, and fighting here.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe, it'll be like, Jagger, no, because he's a good kid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, you couldn't ask for a better kid. Like I'm
Yeah.
thinking that when I think about when I was his age, not that I was a bad kid. I kept it on the DL,
Right.
but here's the deal. It's terrible
Yeah.
that I even was thinking about going and running around and doing things like that. That like, Jagger's just a really,
Jagger's a good kid.
he is. And so is Damon. And them together, they are complete opposites,
But it worked.
but they're good kids.
They are.
And if you ask Damon or say anything to Damon, he's all right.
Yeah.
That's Damon. Jagger, it doesn't really, you know, we just, like I told him, I know the past is the past. And, you know, as he gets older, he's going to be able to put it in more perspective like I did with my own
Yeah.
Right.
parents, you know. But we don't really have anything but just, it's, you know,
There's a lot of joy there.
a lot of joy.
Yeah.
We're
And
good.
It's amazing.
And I think
I could
that's
tell
it,
him
like,
that.
you know, him showing the Christmas trees and all that, he's processing everything. But it's like, man, like, and I just remember, you know, talking to you one day, like, listen, he's still a kid. He's going to say some things, you know,
Yes.
that he doesn't,
Yes.
you know, mean or understand. But it's like, in the long run, what's the most important thing is you've done it, you know. And
Yeah.
there's
And
a
he's watched you do it.
And there's a scripture that says, the Lord will restore the years that the locusts have eaten. And
Right.
that's, you know, what I feel like for you. It's like all
For
these
sure.
years in this, but so many people they get stuck of looking back.
Yeah.
Looking back. And
But
so
now
that's
it's time to move forward.
Yeah,
you
and like
know?
I tell him, hey Jagger, we may not. He's like, oh, we've never been on vacation. I said, I promise you, buddy. I don't care how old you are. We're going on vacations.
Right.
We're gonna do things because I'm gonna do that.
Yeah.
I'm not. I know, like right now, that your friends are at the beach.
Yeah.
That's okay.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
We're gonna be there.
Right.
I promise.
But I love how you've been able to embrace that
Yeah.
and not allow Satan just to, you know,
Keep me
because
down.
here's the deal: you go daggum Paris, right? I mean, not right now, but like, you know, like you go anywhere. If God's not the foundation, it doesn't matter.
Exactly.
You know, and granted, it's a kid. You're helping him understand it, but I love how you've been true to your faith, and
Yeah.
you know, just like, and I love how you've not allowed Satan just to completely just identify you. Yeah, I've screwed up. So there, in response, I'll give you anything and everything I can, Jack.
Right.
Here's this and this and this. Man, you've stayed grounded. I know
Yeah.
we haven't
Yeah.
been perfect. None of us have.
Right.
But man, you say, hey, I know, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I've done
Right.
that. But because most people, they either fall away completely or they just try to get all those years of making it up,
Yeah.
you know, on your own. But man, you got to let God do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so you know, you have to figure what it did to my brain
Yeah.
doing drugs for that long.
Yeah.
People that are addicts, they think that, oh, you know, I got 2 weeks clean. That's great.
Right.
1 day's clean is good.
Yeah.
The thing of it is to restore your ability to think logically
Right.
takes a minute.
That's
And
good.
you've got to, like, every day. I'll tell you, at core, all I had to do is say, if I got up, went to bed, if I got up, went to work, and went to my class, that's all I needed to do that day.
Yeah.
That's it.
Right.
That's it. Nothing more, nothing less. And I called my kids. That's it. You know, and I
Right.
had a relationship with the girls in the house, but I didn't set myself up for a failure of it. And I definitely, you know, and I tried to exceed what I thought I could ever do, which was finish the program in general.
Yeah.
Do you
And
realize
you
when
did.
Right.
when my dad got his check back
Right.
for his deposit,
Right.
he's like, that was the best investment he's
Right?
ever made.
Yeah.
You know?
Absolutely.
And you just don't even realize. And so even I had a doctor ask me, because I had some stomach problems last week. I went and ended up going to the ER. And I'm honest mostly with most everybody, you know. And I'm like, yeah, I used meth for 24 years and active addiction for 26. And he's like, you know what? It's so good to see somebody on the other side of it because I always see the ones that
Yeah.
come in.
Yeah.
here. Right. So he's like, how long did it take for you to get where you could think? And I said a year.
Yeah.
Right.
A good year.
Yeah.
Where I didn't, as soon as I got home, didn't want to just go to sleep or whatever.
That's important for people to hear that. 'Cause
Yeah.
sometimes they're like, well, I thought God would fix it. And it's like, He will.
He will.
You know,
Sometimes
what I
it's a
like to say
process.
is God will forgive you of your sins, but you got to live with your consequences sometimes.
Yeah.
You know, and, you know, healing and all that. And you've been sober how long now?
See, it is January 17th, 2017. So,
Crazy,
yeah.
man.
Yeah.
You've been
amazing.
You've been working nonstop. And
January 11th, 2017. But so, yeah, I've been working. I was blessed with, okay, so here's another deal with, you know, me at a house moving up from Branson. I left my job down there. Never been a server in my life. Like, sure, I'll try it.
Yeah.
Right? Okay. And it worked out. Did great.
Yeah.
So here I got to move to Springfield and got a job at UPS. And when I was working at UPS, I see these packages for PFI. And I'm like, really? Am I supposed to go there and probably for a job? Yeah,
Right.
get this job. And I've done nothing but, you know, just excel in it.
Right.
who would have ever thought I'd work retail?
Right.
Right. But then I have this great employer who it's not a corporate, you know, I mean, he's an individual that is, hey, he's into what, you know,
Right.
they were okay with me going to classes and stuff and working with me. And so that's just a blessing in itself.
Right.
You know, the next thing after being sober, you know, for an extended amount of time is the fact that exercise is a big deal. It is. And it's so often people go back to using before they ever get a chance to realize that. Because, you know, I gained 40 pounds. And I knew after the first year, if I didn't get into something else, that I would be one of the triggers to go back, is the weight gain.
Yeah.
Wow.
So in the past 2 years, I've lost 30 pounds, you know, and that's just by, you know, being, you know, consistent.
Right.
That isn't like, you know, big, I'm going to not eat this and I'm going to lose it in 5 days.
Yeah.
Right.
So
But that's the
yeah,
word consistency. That's you know, that's what you've kind of learned to, you know, just adapt, you know, your own self, which has been so cool.
right.
You know?
And I mean, that's just not, and then that's just going out for anybody listening to this because it's a process. It's not an overnight, it's a lifestyle. And God does have big plans for everybody, and everybody is somebody.
That's so good.
So
You
good.
know, and I think I still struggle with that sometimes. You know that He's going to use me in what way. So, and even Selena said to me one day, she's like, Angie, it's a season, you know, because I'm like, I can't come to church, I've got to work, but I really this job I've had now for 2 years, I've worked at PFI. And it was a big deal for me just to hang in there. You know, at first I thought, man, I'm not a good fit. And then it kept working out that they would move me. And all of a sudden I'm a key holder manager, you know, and she's like, it's a season. Cause some days I'll get kind of feeling defeated. Like, and is this what I'm supposed to be doing? But it's so great. I get to have all these conversations with all these people and you know, you just never know who you're going to help there.
Right.
God's using you.
Man, such a powerful story. So what's the last thing? What is one thing you would just leave with people if they are, I mean, whether they're an addict, whether they're just going through a rough time, I don't know what their story is, but what is one piece of advice that you would give them just to say, I did this. This is just a little bit of, you know, advice on how I would, what would you leave with people?
See the truth in your life. And it's, in order to work on yourself, you have to be able to see yourself for what you are and what you're doing. And if it's one of those things, if it's not beneficial for you, if you're fighting it internally, take a look at trying to change it, you know. Change is hard. It's not easy, but it takes willingness.
Yeah.
And I think everybody has a little bit of willingness in them. It's just not seeing the bigger obstacle. It's one day at a time for sure. And I know that quote goes on and on with, you know, but it is. You can't look too far ahead.
Right.
Well, no, I think the biggest thing is like surrender. Like when you surrender to the Lord, man, like like that was the changing thing. Because you in your own willpower, you tried and you did and you tried.
Yeah,
and you
Angie
did.
tried to do a lot of things. It
We
never
all-
works out.
We all do, you know. That's
Yeah.
that's what I love for
I
people
really-
to hear is like, you know, you hear the meth stories and you hear, you know, the whatever stories, you know, some murder and all these crazy things. But then how about you have a good job, you have a good family, but God's not the center. Man,
Yeah,
you know,
it's-
it's like in God's eyes, you know,
It's all-
sin is sin, you know, and so
Yeah.
I think that's what's so powerful is for people to see like your crazy, crazy story, you know,
Yeah.
but then see, okay, this is who she is now,
Right.
and this is what the Lord's done in her life, and look at how she's fought for her family, look at how she's fought for her life, and now what I'm so excited for is like you get to embrace the blessings of God.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's
you know.
really cool because
Yeah.
I'll tell you what, I've had some crazy blessings.
Yeah.
I am not kidding.
Right.
You
Yeah.
know, just
Praise
little,
God.
yeah. And so one thing also is that I would like to point out is like last year I even tried to get into a relationship with somebody, good guy, but you know what I found myself doing was comparing my life to somebody who had a different story to
Right.
theirs,
Right.
and then I was becoming like down about where I was at, not seeing where I had come from.
Right.
So, you know, whenever you go into being into sober living and stuff, people tend to jump into relationships. I don't suggest it, you know, because you got to work on you. It's not an overnight deal. You know,
It's
not saying that.
process.
Yeah, I'm not saying that I wouldn't be a blessing for somebody in somebody's life eventually, but you know,
That's good.
yeah, gotta
Yeah.
take it
Well,
slow.
man, we love you. I'm proud of
Yeah.
you. And like,
Thanks.
man, you're so awesome. And
Thanks.
like, and you being here, like, dude, you can say I've been there, done that. I've seen this
Yeah.
as much as anybody I know.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
And man, like your humility is something so strong, and just like the hunger for the Lord and hunger for yourself and Jag. I can't wait to see what God's going to do going forward.
Thanks.
Thank
you for having me.
Love you.
Yeah, love you.
Make sure to subscribe to this channel so that these episodes are sent to you each month, along with our Life and Leadership podcast that shares content about the behind the scenes in our own lives and also talk about various leadership principles that we found to be beneficial in our own life and ministry.
Also, check out our midweek Message and Worship podcast that's released every Thursday. Thanks for hanging out with us.